Bernie Sanders today, not officially Bernie Sanders saying it, but news came out that Bernie Sanders' previous campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, will not return as Bernie Sanders' campaign manager in 2020. I'll read you the article quick. Senator Bernie Sanders will have a new campaign manager if he runs for president in 2020. Jeff Weaver, the longtime aide who led his 2016 bid, will not return to the role if Sanders enters the race, a source familiar with the planning process told CNN. Weaver confirmed in an interview that his position will be changing, most likely to senior strategic advisor to Sanders, who is being encouraged by supporters to enter the race soon. A decision is expected to come in weeks or months. The move also underscores an understanding both among Sanders' close aides and outside backers that the Vermont Independent will need a more robust infrastructure and diverse staff in order to reach or exceed the support he received during the 2016 contest. The source said the decision for Weaver to return in a different capacity was made well in advance of new reports about sexual harassment by staffers working on the 2016 campaign. Sanders, Weaver, and the Senator's campaign committee have all since expressed regret over the inappropriate behavior and pledged to provide stronger safeguards going forward. I am not going to sit here and tell you that we did everything right in terms of human resources, in terms of addressing the needs that I'm hearing from now, that women felt disrespected, that there was sexual harassment, which was not dealt with as effectively as possible. Sanders told CNN's Anderson Cooper, apologizing to any women who feel like she was not treated appropriately. I think it's kind of important to point this out, which CNN's piece does not. There was no accusation against Bernie Sanders. That's not to say any type of sexual harassment in his campaign is okay, but obviously it's different when you're talking about women in his campaign experience sexual harassment from an advisor or a superior. Obviously it's not the candidate, so I think that's kind of important. And Bernie Sanders, I think, has come out and said the right things as far as this issue. So before I get to the second thing that I believe shows that Bernie is running, let me explain how this thing works. So, Bernie Sanders, right now, he's already decided he's running for president. He just publicly hasn't announced it. So, that means Bernie Sanders and whoever he's choosing as his campaign manager are trying to get the best of the best that they want to join his campaign. You're talking about getting people right out of the gate to be the campaign manager in Iowa, getting people to be the campaign manager in New Hampshire, getting people to be the campaign manager in South Carolina, getting people to be the campaign manager of several of the Super Tuesday votes, getting people to be the director of African American outreach, of Latino outreach, all those things, getting someone to run policy on climate change. So basically, right now, because I do believe he's already decided to run, you're trying to set up your infrastructure and your organization. I could tell you, because I covered the campaign while I was at the Young Turks, I happen to, I've never had a bad interaction with Jeff Weaver, but again, I didn't work in the campaign. I do know from many people who did work in the campaign that a lot of people didn't like Jeff Weaver as the campaign manager. They didn't like the decisions he made. They didn't like his leadership style. They didn't like his communication. So I think it's not like CNN and other places just kind of found this out. This is somebody from Bernie Sanders' campaign and Bernie Sanders' office leaking to the press. Jeff Weaver will not be the campaign manager, and they're doing that because they want to be able to hire the best progressive organizers and campaign officials. And a lot of those progressive organizers and campaign officials would not want to work for Bernie Sanders if that meant having to be under Jeff Weaver. And I want to make something clear. I'm not knocking Jeff Weaver. I could only tell you what I was told by people who worked on his campaign when I was on the campaign trail. I've never had a bad interaction with Jeff Weaver. I've spoken with him a couple times. I interviewed him. But, you never know what's behind the scenes in a campaign. I did not travel with Bernie Sanders' campaign for the whole campaign, so I would not have the insight into what were the problems with Jeff Weaver. That I can't tell you. All I can tell you is what I was told. But to me, this is a not so subtle. This is a sign. This is what do they call those? smoke coming out of the Vatican. Weaver's not running the campaign. Come join us. Because I think Bernie Sanders was quite aware after the campaign that there were problems with Jeff Weaver. But Jeff Weaver is like a son to Bernie Sanders. You might not know that. Jeff Weaver was Bernie Sanders' driver as his first job in Washington. I think he drove Bernie around when Bernie, I think Jeff Weaver was his driver in Vermont when Bernie was running for mayor or just became mayor. So they go back a long time. Bernie Sanders trusts Jeff Weaver. He's one of Bernie's closest confidants, closest advisors. He's basically family to Bernie Sanders, Jane Sanders. So I'm sure it's not an easy decision to essentially, what this is a demotion. You're not being made campaign manager again. You're being made a senior advisor, if you want to say that. But Bernie knows that to get the people that he wants, because you have a campaign manager, but it's critical. A campaign manager can't run every single state. He oversees everything. So obviously you have campaign managers in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and other states. So that's sign number one. Here is the second tea leaf that I believe is a clear sign that Bernie Sanders is running for president. Here is an email that went out from Our Revolution. Bernie Sanders, he is not, technically Bernie Sanders is not involved with Our Revolution, but Our Revolution is basically Bernie Sanders' organization. It was formed in the shadow of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders isn't, day to day involved, but he's obviously somewhat involved. So this is the top of the Our Revolution email that went out to Our Revolution people. And it says, "Run, Bernie, run. Run, Bernie, run." And friends, I'll be blunt. We need a presidential candidate who cares about working class and poor people. There's just too much on the line. Bernie Sanders has galvanized millions around Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, 100% renewable energy, a $15 minimum wage, and other policies that would vastly improve our lives. He stands apart in his dedication to building a grassroots movement and a truly progressive agenda for all. Let's show Bernie that we're ready. Sign our petition now. So they link to the petition calling out for Bernie to run. Our revolution is the continuation of the bottom-up energy that fueled Bernie's 2016 campaign. Our 250,000 members, over 600 local groups, and millions of supporters are building grassroots power across the country. We've elected progressives up and down the ballot, democratized the Democratic Party, and continued the fight for universal health care, free public college, and a host of other progressive issues. Now we need a U.S. president who shares our movement's desire for social and economic justice. Our message to Senator Sanders should be loud and clear. Run, Bernie, run! It's like, run, Forrest, run! Be part of convincing Bernie to run for the president. Sign and share this petition now. So another link to the petition. 2016 was just the beginning. It's time we take out the ballpoint pens, find the clipboards, and start talking to the people about the next president of the United States. Add your name to tell Bernie you'll be with him. In solidarity, Heather Goutney. She is the executive director of Our Revolution. So right under Nina Turner, who is the president. So folks, I don't really know what else you need. You got essentially Bernie Sanders' office or Bernie Sanders himself. People tied to Bernie Sanders leaking to the press, Jeff Weaver will not be the campaign manager again. Like I said, he's doing that because Jeff Weaver was not loved by people who worked on Bernie Sanders' campaign. Obviously, Bernie Sanders is sending out that message, and that's a big deal that he's decided not to have Jeff Weaver on because Jeff Weaver is his comfort zone. Jeff Weaver's is in politics. Jeff Weaver is who's been along with, other than his wife, Jeff Weaver has been along the ride with Bernie more than anyone. Even before Bernie was nationally known, Jeff Weaver was there. So by him basically, no other way to say it, caving and not having Jeff Weaver run the campaign, that's a big decision for Bernie to make, and it means he's running. The second thing is, Our Revolution would not be sending out emails, run, Bernie, run, if they already didn't know Bernie was running. So it's their way of galvanizing the troops, getting a little press attention on their, draft Bernie. Because right now it's basically draft Bernie time, even though from everything I've heard, he's already made the decision to run for president. So I think this is a big deal. Bernie's response to President Trump's address, to me, it doesn't really indicate much. I mean, Bernie did his own online response to President Trump after President Trump's State of the Union last year. So Bernie's done online responses before. I don't particularly think that gives it away that Bernie's running. I do think, that Sanders' office essentially leaking that Jeff Weaver will not be the campaign manager, as well as the Our Revolution message, is a big deal. I will also say I am obviously a journalist, but I happen to have some thoughts politically. I don't know. I have contacted a source a source that I have with Bernie. I haven't heard back yet. I don't know who he's decided as his campaign manager yet. My thoughts is Bernie Sanders, as incredible as Bernie Sanders is in terms of policy and authenticity, those who know Bernie Sanders, he could be a little stubborn and set in his ways. And I think Jeff Weaver, as the campaign manager, although he did some things well, I think Jeff Weaver was kind of a reinforcement as far as Bernie's ways. So Bernie Sanders, to me, one of the biggest issues with his 2016 campaign, besides the whole entire corporate media and Washington, D.C. and state level establishment going after him, Bernie Sanders needs someone as his campaign manager who is going to push him to change certain things, and somebody who's not going to cave when Bernie Sanders says, I'm not doing it that way. Bernie Sanders has great instincts in some areas, but in other areas, he does not have the right instincts. And I would argue, I'm not a political strategist, but this is what I saw on the campaign trail, and this is what I think. I think Bernie Sanders too often confuses running a positive campaign and trying to win on his message with basically going to a knife fight holding a spoon. You can run a positive campaign while still rolling up your sleeves and getting down in the mud when is necessary. If you just say, gee golly, Jim, I'm not going to mention A, B, and C because it's technically would come off negative, then you're letting the Cory Bookers of the world get away with political murder. You're going to be letting the Kamala Harrises of the world get away with political murder. You're going to be letting the Cory Bookers of the world get away with political murder. So Bernie Sanders is going to have to understand, you're in 2016, you were running against the Clinton cartel, as I like to call it. This time, you're going to be running against the entire Democratic establishment cartel with their hand-picked little puppets, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, possibly Beto O'Rourke. Who else? Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Beto O'Rourke, possibly Joe Biden, possibly Kirsten Gillibrand, possibly Terry McAuliffe. I mean, you're going to be essentially fighting all of these people and their propagandists and their special interest contacts. So you're going to have to get negative sometimes. And Bernie Sanders is going to have to listen to his campaign manager. I'll give you one example. During the 2016 Brooklyn debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders was asked by anchor Chris Cuomo, I believe, can you name one vote that Hillary Clinton voted on that clearly shows she voted for that based on a political donation? I mean, I could name 10 off the top of my head. Bernie Sanders basically chose to just go into his general talking points. He wouldn't give a specific vote. His campaign, when that question was asked, I'll give you a little behind the scenes of the debates, campaigns have information ready to go to blast out to reporters. So a lot of times, if a candidate will have a money soundbite ready to go, and once they say it during the debate, the campaign then blasts out to all the political reporters and everybody information that backs up what the candidate is saying and is usually negative about the other candidate. Well, when Bernie was asked that, his campaign blasted out the bankruptcy bill, which Hillary Clinton, as first lady in the 1990s, was against. the bankruptcy bill really made it difficult and almost impossible for families, single mothers to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. It was the credit card industry loved it. Joe Biden voted for the bankruptcy bill. Hillary Clinton was against it as First Lady. Then she runs for senator in the year 2000. All of a sudden, she's getting money hand over fist money she's getting from Wall Street. And all of a sudden, as a senator, she changes her mind on the bankruptcy bill. Bernie Sanders, his campaign at least, had prepared him with that. And his campaign blasted it out to all the reporters, but Bernie in that moment chose not to say it. I found out after the fact, he thought that would be going negative. Well, Bernie, you're facing the oligarchy. So you could sit there and we could be, kumbaya, and let's have a positive message and let's really hit them with the issues. Or you could live in political reality, because you're going to need to do both. You're going to have a positive, forward-looking message, not just Trump is the Antichrist, but here is what has led to Trump. Here are the structural inequality issues, corruption issues, environmental genocide issues that has led to somebody like Donald Trump becoming president. But you could also, with that positive message, also be ready to fight. They're not going to be sitting there, saying, well, let's be positive on the issues. They're going to be trying to put a knife, not in Sanders' back, in the front of Sanders.